Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us this afternoon for this session which looks at the huge potential of the halal travel market. The term halal travel is often misunderstood. It's not religious tourism, but it's a travel concept that meets the needs of the world's growing Muslim population. In 2004, the global halal travel sector was worth $142 billion. That accounted for 11% of the total global travel expenditure. That's according to Thomson Reuters and Dinar Standard. By 2020, it's expected to be worth $233 billion, or 13% of total travel expenditure. So, from those figures, you can understand the huge potential for governments, tourism boards, hotels, tour operators, and other travel industry stakeholders to capitalise on this trend. And the Middle East, let's face it, it's a target market. Not only are governments across this region prioritising tourism infrastructure spend, but GCC travellers account for a staggering 37% of Muslim travel spend. Today, our esteemed panellists will explain why the halal travel market should not be ignored and how you can be part of this lucrative sector. So let me introduce them. So I'm going to start over that side there with Chris Nader, who's the Vice President Development for Shaza Hotels. Shaza Hotels is one of few five-star hotel brands that meets the requirements of Muslim travellers. And this week, if I'm right in thinking, you're launching a four-star brand too, aren't you, that's halal friendly. It's called Misk by Shaza. So Chris will tell us why there's a huge gap in the market for both of these type of products. Sitting next to Chris, we have Nabeel Shariff. He's the founder and director of Serendipity Tailormade, which is a luxury, halal-friendly tour operator based in the UK. His vision is to bring back the romance of travel to Muslim travellers. Nabeel brings more than 15 years of industry experience to a brand that's made great strides in the halal travel sector. And then sitting next to him, we have Ahli, who's Manager for Government, Travel and Local Affairs for dnata Travel. Now, Bader, he has more than a decade of industry experience with the Emirates Group, and dnata Travel recently developed a range of tours and travel services for Muslim travellers. And so Bader's going to explain to us why the company is focusing on this sector. And then let me take you over to Faeez Fadhlillah, who's the CEO and co-founder of Tripfez. This is a brand new travel review and booking site dedicated to Muslim travellers, which is being launched this week right here at ATM. He's also the founder of Salam Standard, which is a unique online listing of halal-friendly hotels all around the world. And at the end of this session, ladies and gentlemen, Faeez will be presenting the first ever Salam Standard Destination Award to Dubai Tourism. So please make sure that you stay put for that one. And last but certainly not least, on the end here, if you were in the last session, you'll know him already. We've got Scott Booth, who's Travel and Tourism Research Director for YouGov. As you guys probably know, YouGov conducts extensive travel industry research in the Middle East region, and in September and October last year, the company researched the halal travel sector, which brought to light some interesting findings. So, I'm going to come over and sit next to these guys now. I'd like Scott to actually kick off the session and talk about some of those top-line findings briefly. Oh, it helps if you take the microphone with you. A stage faux pas. Scott, can you just give us an outline, please?
You want numbers or thoughts?
Whatever you fancy. Numbers, thoughts.
I think the most important thing for us to realize about halal travel is not only is it poorly understood by the general population, which our numbers could bear out, there isn't a commonly 100% accepted definition, even amongst those who say they're very interested in it. So for those developing offerings, that may be a tricky point. All I have are opinions. You may have.
Well, I was quite interested in your figures that showed that once people knew what a halal holiday was, they wanted one.
So we have fewer than a third, 29% actually say they're aware of the concept. What we did was then explain what the concept is. It's a halal-friendly travel experience, et cetera, et cetera. Then we got nearly 3/4 of our respondents saying, yeah, that is something I would be interested in doing.
And when you explained the concept to them, how did you, put forward what, halal travel or halal holiday was?
So there is a commonly accepted industry definition, which we used.
Right.
What we did was then bear down into what halal means to a traveler. Is it food? Is it privacy? Is it lack of alcohol? Is it lack of pork? Is it specific family and female requirements if you're traveling as a family and need this type of holiday? And what we found was actually a lot of agreement around food, making it easy to find a halal meal, making it easy to basically exist while on a holiday if you need a halal menu. What we found as well was a lot of disagreement about the other aspects. Do I need, for instance, a private part of the beach where I can go with my family? Do I need a private approach to a pool or a completely private pool? Do I need a private dining room for families? These are aspects that respondents don't agree on. So when you're developing an offering, I can see how there are quite a lot of elements that need to be brought into the picture, and the data clearly bear that out.
Okay, fantastic. Any other points from your data quickly you think is important to mention?
I missed prayer spaces, which are quite important as well. So
Yes,
not just food, prayer spaces.
I think that was 63% of respondents.
So yeah, we're looking at elements that are more than half of our interested respondents are telling us are important.
Great. Now, leading on from that point, it'd be interesting to find out, firstly, from the two overseas markets that we have represented here, Malaysia, where you're based, Faeez, and also UK, Nabeel. Is this term halal travel, halal holidays, is it more widely understood in your markets? I think perhaps we start with Malaysia, which I think time again comes up as the top destination, doesn't it, for Muslim travel and halal travel?
Interesting. It's an interesting thing when you talk about halal, and I think I would agree with what Scott was saying, that the definition itself is not really defined. Because for example, I'm part of the Malaysian Travel Association. When we meet Indonesia, for example, and that's just a country just across the sea, and we're talking about similar people, we speak similar languages, but when it comes to the definition of halal itself, between the two countries, it's different. Like, for Malaysia, when you go to a restaurant and you have alcohol served, that place, the entire place, is considered non-halal.
Of course, yeah.
But for Indonesia, for example, as long as the food itself is halal, it's considered as halal, because you're not consuming the alcohol.
Interesting.
So the interesting part is that there is no clear definition of what halal is. It's just a common acceptance, what Scott was saying, that if the food is halal, then you would consider that the journey is halal, and it's a certain element which you would deem important when you want to go traveling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Now, I'll obviously come back to you because your product caters to the halal markets, and we'll come back to that a little later. But Nabeel, now obviously the UK market completely different, but you've obviously got a strong demand for luxury halal holidays. So your clients, what's their understanding of halal holidays and travel in general?
We do have a strong appeal for the Muslim holiday experience. In a country that only has 2.7 Muslims out of a potential 65, 67 million in total, we're actually quite a small population. If you look at our second market, our second key market, which is the US, it's a similar situation. But the interesting thing with the UK, unlike, say, Malaysia, is that halal tourism out of Malaysia is dealing with one culture. Yes, there are subtle differences between the culture, but generally Muslim culture is pretty much the same. In the UK, we have a little bit more of a challenge. We've got the religious side of things, and we also have the cultural side of things, because we've got generally migrant populations that came in the 50s and 60s, and we've got to manage those expectations too. So what we found is that we're actually managing halal tourism as being intrinsic in our product. We don't actually have to, as being a Muslim company obviously helps, but we don't actually have to definitively say, you're going to a hotel that serves halal food. Our clients expect that from us. They expect nothing less from us, in all honesty. And the other attributes that Scott mentioned about privacy, prayer rooms, being dry or having a non-alcoholic room, and even having a female butler if you're lucky enough to have one. those are elements that our clients now trust us to ensure that is in place. And that's just basically 5 years of us working hard and getting our message across. So depending on where you're working through, and I appreciate that the UK and US is generally a smaller market compared to the GCC and the Far East. You do have to look at religion and culture, and that will potentially define really what you're looking at as a halal product.
So when they come to you, they don't say, I want a halal holiday. How they just say, I want a holiday from you. And those things are expected already because you specialise.
It's funny, if we say to them, if we say to them we do halal holidays, they say, well, what's that?
So it comes back to the terminology.
It comes back to the same story.
Do we need the terminology?
As a Muslim, you expect to consume halal. That is what we do. We don't consume non-halal out of unless it's out of choice. But generally, as far as halal is phrased within food, fashion, cosmetics, finance, the rules and the guidelines that are set out in those products are pretty much set for. It's how you present those across to your clients. And for us, we've worked with some of the best hotel chains around to really understand what they need to provide and be inclusive to Muslims rather than be exclusive to Muslims.
Okay, thank you. Now, Badr, obviously this is something Dnata Travel has started to explore. How did that come about, and how do you think the term halal and halal tours is defined in this market? I mean, very similarly, obviously we have Muslims from all over the world living here in Dubai and around the UAE, GCC, etc.
Well, with Dnata Travel, it was actually quite a challenge for us to brand a product around halal tourism. As you know, that it was quite difficult for us to generalize the entire segment as halal. Now, the closest definition we have to the truth of what halal tourism is any tourism or any leisure activity that is in accordance with the Sharia law. And that definition is not enough because you open a can of worms because people come from different sects, different backgrounds. So what is halal to me could be not halal to someone else. So we came up with our own branding and we called it the Muslim-friendly tourism.
Right.
So it could be anything. It could be, for example, as my colleague here said, that normally a client will not come to us and ask us for a halal holiday or a halal honeymoon. He will ask us for a hotel that provides prayer mats or a prayer sign where's the qibla, or a restaurant that doesn't provide alcohol or pork. So there is some segments of the halal tourism or the Muslim-friendly tourism that we can offer to our clients, thanks to all the DMCs and DMOs and hotels that come from
Okay,
us.
fantastic. And I'll come back to you, Faeez, in a minute, because obviously with Salam standard, you rate things according to the various facilities. I'm going to come back to you in a minute. Hold that point. But Chris, now, as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, one of the few hotel companies, to specialise in this area. How did it come about, and what kind of challenges are you having in terms of getting this concept, accepted, perhaps not so much by customers, but even investors?
Actually, I'm very happy to see the point of view from the guest standpoint and how my colleagues are also struggling to give a definition. We have a similar debates and discussion with the investors who are building those hotels with us. We have about 12 hotels now in the pipeline, and what is halal for one investor, as you were saying, is different for the other investor. What type of TV channels and entertainment you want in the rooms? Do you want 2 swimming pools? Do you have the space to build 2, or the investment to actually have 2 swimming pools? Do you want to play on different time schedules between ladies and men? How do you provide suitable privacy for families or for couples? This goes also to another extent when you start talking about resorts, and I think this is a very exciting part of what Nabeel also tries to sell worldwide, is how do you create a resort that is halal? Because you have kind of a dichotomy between a resort which is synonymous with openness, being out there, exposing yourself, with the requirement of privacy. So you have to find that balance between private villas with private swimming pools versus having public swimming pools, because whether you want to swim in that pool or not, it's always nice at night to be having your fish, around the swimming pool and enjoying the view over the sea. So these are some of the debates that we have with investors, and you will see that our hotels have differences depending on the location because the definition is not clear. But the basic requirement that these gentlemen require when they sell those packages, or what guests require, will always be available in all Shaza hotels. So I don't want to be in a situation where I have to explain why is Shaza halal friendly, not halal friendly, and you have so many other definitions of that word.
Yes.
I want people to know that if I go to a Shaza, I'm comfortable, I know what to expect, and I don't have to worry about it.
And how do you do that in your marketing then? How do you get this across so everybody knows, you know, where they stand and what you stand for? Is it a challenge?
It's a challenge because we're a new company. We're opening our first hotels. We have already one hotel. It's in Medina, which is a religious market, so that's easy. But we're opening our first market outside of a religious market, which is in Doha and Muscat. And this is where the interesting marketing and communication aspect of halal tourism becomes interesting. What are you going to tell your guests? How are you going to attract them to the hotel? You have elements about, you were talking about ladies only floor, caters to ladies, families, friendly facilities. The food is the easy part. Halal food is easy. Not having alcohol, you can just remove the alcohol from your restaurant. We go beyond that. We create special concepts that go with the fact that it's a dry restaurant. So some elements are easy to communicate on. Others will come, I guess, with the experience.
Sure,
with
as
the
it
brand.
matures, yeah. Now, Scott, you touched on religious tourism there. Now, in your research, it was interesting that Saudi Arabia was the country most closely associated with halal holidays. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, I think, again, it's because of what comes to mind when we say, it's a loaded phrase. When we say halal holiday, what comes to mind is Muslim friendly. And what comes to mind is, I'm 100% sure if I go and stay in a hotel in Saudi, it will cater to those requirements. Does that mean I'm going to go on a leisure holiday to Saudi? What we actually see from respondents would indicate not necessarily, not to the same extent that it comes top of mind. So things like the no alcohol, the halal food, these offerings in other markets, Malaysia, other parts of Southeast Asia, parts of Europe now, create an environment that's quite conducive. I wanted to make one comment about the numbers that you put up, $142 billion industry. I was just poring over some UN WTO numbers the other day.
Yeah.
That's the same size as the exit China travel market.
Wow.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's the number one exiting
But it's still
nationality in the
considered a
world.
niche. This is the interesting thing, isn't it? Which is why we're here today, because it's bigger than a niche.
It's massive.
Yeah.
It's not well understood, but it's very, very big.
So in that respect, those of you, like you guys, that jump on it are
Just
going
to
to do well.
jump in there, I actually feel sorry for hoteliers in understanding this market because they're trying to be everything to everyone, and Muslims are a little bit expectant on what they're going to be getting. You know, they want to have that beautiful view, as Chris said. You know, having your dinner, have that view, but we want privacy as well. We want it all, and you know, sometimes for hoteliers it's quite difficult, and it's quite difficult to appease that. So the hoteliers that are making the effort to understand the market and taking their time to really understand what clients require from different markets, whether it's the GCC Saudi market, whether it's the European market, whether it's the Malaysian market, it's going to take a little bit of time. And the only thing is that the demand is right there. It's right there right now. So if you're a hotelier out there or a tourist destination out there, you know, now is the time to think about it.
I think as well part of the problem why it's actually quite difficult to market to this segment is that the Muslim or halal segment does not belong to one. It could be an adventure traveler, sport traveler, an individual traveler, but still wants some shade of halal tourism in his package. So I don't think we should target Muslim friendly tourist segment as one that fits all. It could be different segments of the
So
market.
treat it like the travel market in general,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
which has many segments and many facets.
So I can say, for example, on top of my head, I'm from UAE, that at least 90% of all the UAE nationals will be interested in halal packages. But maybe more than that, but not all of them are only interested in halal tourism. They want to go for different purposes, whether it's honeymoon, business, individual traveler, sport traveler, adventure traveler. So it's actually very hard to market only Muslim-friendly tourism. People don't go. I would disagree that people will go to a destination because it's Muslim-friendly. No, people will go to a destination because they want to go
They
there.
want to go there, yeah, and then
But,
they expect
yeah,
to have those
that-
services
exactly.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we're talking about demand. Sorry,
Yeah.
Chris,
I
did you want
just
to?
wanted to reinforce what you're saying. It's important that you provide facilities, in our case, a hotel, that any traveler would want to be here, would feel comfortable being here, highest standards, modern design, and you're not targeting Muslim travelers only. Any family who would require a certain standing, a certain environment should be welcome to buy those halal travel packages. So it's important to make that distinction.
Thank you. So I touched upon demand and the value. Faeez, I'd like to turn to you now because obviously you've launched 2 products dedicated to this market. Can you tell us what growth potential you see in the market and why you've developed those 2 products?
I think if you look at the data you were mentioning earlier, like what was it, 142 billion in 2014,
Yeah.
and 200 plus
I think
billion
it's
in 2020.
233 billion
That's
by
2%
2020.
growth within the next, what was that, the next 6 years.
Yeah.
So that's huge. And if you look at I think Thomson Reuters released, within our standard, released a data that, what was it? The growth between 2014 and 2013, that was 6%, represents 6% of the global Muslim travel market, which is much higher than the world global average of 3.8%. So that's huge. So, I mean, it's growing really fast, and it's basically one of the top 3. I mean, if you consider the global Muslim market as one country, it's basically the top 3 country in terms of global expenditure. So it's a huge market. That's where we venture into this specific market. And I think what we could agree on is actually it's quite difficult to find a standard definition of what halal is or what Muslim friendly is. So what we did was that we did a survey across multiple countries to create sort of like a universal, acceptable definition of what halal is. So that's basically based on certain criteria such as the food, the praying mat, whether or not you have the qibla, whether or not you have a list of halal restaurants. So those are the certain features which everyone can agree on, which is important when Muslim goes traveling. And then we rank that based on what feature is more relevant and less relevant. So when it comes to the fact that food, for example, is really pretty much really relevant. So that's where we focus on collecting this specific data from hotels to help basically Muslim travelers to choose a destination or choose a particular hotel when they go traveling.
And that research you conducted, you've based launched your products off the back of that, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's really important to understand that because of the huge potential of growth, a lot of the destinations are actually going into destinations which are traditionally non-Muslim when we talk about it in general, such as Japan and Korea.
Yes.
So Japan, for example, they have, like in Kansai airport, they have 3 prayer rooms. And that's from a country which is far from understanding what the Muslim wants, because there's literally barely any Muslim there. I mean, you have a small proportion, but it's not the majority that you would understand what Muslim want. But they have at their airport 3 prayer rooms. Or you have in Gold Coast, for example, where they provide during fasting time, you have like sahur in the morning.
Yes.
So they provide that for the hotel guests, like 5 a.m.
And
in the morning.
they do iftar as well, I think, in the Gold Coast too.
That's kind of like a fascinating thing to watch, the growth of the market and the potential of the entire market itself. And I think that's something which we are really fascinated about.
Now, talking about destinations, I'm quite interested to learn from our panellists what destinations are proving popular with, you know, Muslim travellers and why. Who'd like, maybe Nabeel would like to.
I guess we're a little bit different in terms of where we appeal to. Tell you a little story. 6 years ago, me and my wife were sitting on an island in Thailand, and we had the sea on one side, we had our own private villa, a beautiful meal, all halal. And I turned around to my wife and I said, why aren't Muslims doing this? Why aren't they coming to places like this? And it was probably the last place that I probably expected Muslims to travel to because it's so remote. And it got me thinking that what do Muslims really require when it comes to destinations? And we did a little bit of research when we first started the business. And then we ran the same piece of research again literally 6 months ago. And one of the questions was, what do you want from your holiday as a Muslim? And we listed the typical items, halal food, etc., etc. And halal food obviously came up number one. Second was to experience new cultures and people. And that was a real shock to us, because that's exactly the same feeling that me and my wife had on honeymoon. We went to explore a new culture. We didn't want to go to somewhere that we're probably used to, or we're accustomed to. We wanted to see something new. And I think it does vary dependent on markets, but for us in the UK, our target market is the 23, we're obviously talking millennials as they're growing older now and getting into the economical stages of their life. But generally we're looking at 25 to 40. They're married, they're professional, they're ambitious. So they want to go to places that they wouldn't normally go to, or because, you know, Jane in the office has been to recently, or, you know, Tom has been in the office, has been to as well, and, you know, they had a great time in St. Lucia, or they had a great time in Vietnam, and they want to go there, and they want to be able to do that. They just want access to do that. So we're finding that destinations which are a little bit off the beaten track, not your normal destinations, are really what's driving our business. Yes, you know, the Gulf is obviously a key part of our business, because a lot of our clients fly with, you know, one of the Middle Eastern airlines. But generally, as a rule of thumb, from our perspective, UK, US, European, they're looking for somewhere new. So, just sorry to answer your question after my rambling. Our top destinations are the Indian Ocean, so Seychelles, Mauritius, Maldives, Thailand, and Vietnam. Believe it or not, is a really, really good seller for us. So that's where we're coming from the UK market.
Faeez, what destinations are you noting?
I kind of agree with Nabeel that it's no specific where they want to go is not specifically based on whether or not the place is halal or whether or not it's more like
experience.
Yes, it's experience,
yeah.
and I mean it's similar to any other culture. You want to go somewhere where it's exciting, somewhere which is fun, somewhere which is new. So, for example, for Malaysian, Korea. Korea is something exciting. You see it on TV all the time.
Yeah.
You want to go to Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia. Those are the places which is. In the past, you've always been scared. Like in the past, like 10 years ago, a lot of Malaysians were really scared to just go to Thailand, just cross the border, because the perception is hard to find halal food. It's hard to find.
So those things do still matter, even though they're seeking that experience. Yeah. Those things matter to them.
Those things matters in the past, but nowadays it's already expected that the place will have it. You'll eventually find. Muslim or halal food in Korea. You'll eventually find in Vietnam, on the street of Vietnam, you'll probably find somewhere a place serving halal food.
But isn't that quite recent? You know, is it only quite recently
I think it's more like the interest towards it has becoming more and more.
So the destinations responded to that.
Yeah. I mean, Vietnam, Korea, Japan. Those are the destinations which are very, very interested in halal travel.
Yes.
Because they see a huge influx of people traveling there, and I just want to quote something which is very fascinating. So in Malaysia, I'm also the Malaysian Travel Association. So one time we had a delegation from the governor, it was the governor of Kansai, Japan.
Okay.
So the first question when we sat down, everything, the usual exchange of cards, the first thing he asked was not how's the weather or how's everything. The first question that came out of his mouth was, can you tell me a little bit about halal? And that was very fascinating for me, because it's the first thing that comes out of his mind, and which shows his interest.
They wanted to learn.
They wanted to learn what it means to offer halal Japan, to make Japan basically a halal destination.
And Scott, now what I found interesting in your research, so in terms of potential halal holiday destinations, the UAE is the country the largest proportion would be interested in seeing develop this offering. So can you go into a bit more about that? Because obviously here we do have halal food, you know, a lot of things are halal, we're living in Muslim countries here, but what do you think they're actually looking for that maybe went beyond those things? And I'll come on to Chris and Nader we can elaborate.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear from that side. Dubai has a reputation. Okay, not only does it have a reputation for having global hotels, we can call them non-halal. The reality is there is a halal offering there, as you indicated. What Dubai has a reputation for, however, globally, is beachfront, high-end luxury hotels. And they are not specifically catered to that halal target, most of them. What I'm seeing from the respondents is a desire for the same offering, the same respect of their personal religious rules in the same beachfront luxury, high luxury property, which is what we're talking about, right? It's relatively new, but we're actually looking at this the wrong way. We're saying we have an adventure travel segment, we have a luxury, we have a family, we have a mid-market, and we have a halal, as though it's one single unit. What we've missed is, as halal has grown, there's now actually a subsegment of everything.
Yeah.
So when you look at the UAE and Dubai as a total offering, I think what we're seeing is a request that as we develop Ras Al Khaimah and Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Sharjah, we keep that in mind. We keep in mind that there's the offering that halal friendly, not just Muslim friendly, not just regional friendly hotels, but halal specific concepts are kept
Yes,
in mind.
because I mean, from some people that I've interviewed, it's very much talked about some of the resorts in Turkey, which sound amazing. They have female-only beaches, female-only pools, so appropriate family entertainment. And these resorts seem to be 100% full year-round. So obviously there's a massive opportunity for hotel investors. We don't have anything like that really in the UAE, do we? Apart from maybe, you know, resorts with private pool villas, perhaps.
I would say that there is a huge opportunity in Dubai to market for this segment. However, there are a few products which cater to the Muslim-friendly tourism. Maybe not as the resort you mentioned in Turkey, where they have a private beach only for the female. But overall, I think Dubai, specifically and UAE overall, cater well to the Muslim-friendly. You can, for example, one of the highest products that we sell as an inbound traffic for dnata is the Abu Dhabi Sheikh Zayed Mosque. People would like to visit the mosque, people would like to, there are a lot of hotels that cater for private swimming pool or timing, specific timing where only female are allowed to swim. So, but I would agree with you that yes, there's a huge opportunity where we can invest more and having more inbound traffic to Dubai based on halal tourism.
I mean, in that dnata, what influence can you have on, you know, developers making those decisions? And Chris, I'm going to ask you the same question as well.
It's actually quite funny you ask me this, because we had a meeting 2 months ago with a gentleman who was trying to create traffic for the Alps in North Italy, France. And it was beautiful resort, beautiful lodges, quite amazing. And one of the people attending the seminar asked whether they provide halal products. And he said, normally we don't have a lot of people coming for halal. Which I didn't find the answer quite satisfying, because I thought a lot of his clients could be Muslims.
Yes.
But they were vegetarians for a month because they couldn't eat.
Yes.
So again, you create a demand by building the property which caters to the Muslim-friendly tourism. You don't wait for the traffic to come and then you create.
No.
something to
And
that.
this seems to be the difficult situation we're in at the moment. Not many investors want to kind of go in that direction. I think, Chris, you said it's a wait-and-see situation. Is that correct?
It is. It's a wait and see. We have two challenges. One is so-called reputation of Dubai, which I think is not correct, because Dubai is one of the most family-friendly destinations you can have. So whilst you have the other aspect of Dubai, this doesn't preclude the other one from existing, and it's actually, for me, the dominant part. So you have this perception. The second challenge is owners, investors often come to us and say, oh, if I don't have alcohol, I won't make money. Which is a very wrong assumption to make, because it all depends what you're building. If you give me today an existing hotel that have a very large nightclub, and you tell me, okay, I'm going to remove the alcohol, operate, and give me the same return of investment, I can't. But I wouldn't build a hotel if I had to start from scratch with a huge nightclub that cannot generate revenue. So it's how you adapt a hotel to that offering to create the same return on investment that another hotel has, because you're actually, we used to call it a niche, it's no longer a niche, it's a huge market, but it's a specialized market that will attract a lot of guests and that will generate the right return. So we've been struggling to convince and find investors that are willing to do such resorts, such hotels in Dubai at a luxury scale. What we're seeing now recently is a motivation of those investors to come at a 4-star level. And I think it's a smaller investment, and they believe that some have assumptions that the halal market is more tailored toward the 3- and 4-star market, not so much in the luxury, so they believe there is more demand for it in that market. So, and yesterday at ATM we launched our 4-star brand, Misk by Shaza, because we clearly identify a gap in the region in the 4-star segment. So hopefully this brand will be growing very rapidly because of this demand.
And just touch upon about facilities, you know, like female-only beaches and pools and that type of thing. Is that something that you'll be doing at any of your resorts?
The positioning of our brand is to provide privacy and comfort without alienating another guest that would like to have normal feature that you will find in a resort. So it's finding that balance between having the privacy and the ability to actually experience swim in an open swimming pool. We try to find that balance whenever we try to go into a resort. Although, as you said, in Antalya and this part of Turkey, they have specialized beaches that are completely closed. If we have the size of the land to do it, then we'll definitely will if we can.
It just seems like that kind of model would work wonderfully well in the GCC countries, wouldn't it? I mean, we've got all this land to develop. Nabeel, what do you
Can I
think?
just add something to that? The Turkish hotels are very unique in their concept. You mentioned that they're 100% occupancy, which they are. It's majority from the local market. And they're geared towards the local market, and they service the local market very, very well. We've had clients travel from the UK, and we've come a bit of a cropper because clients are going with, let's say, 3 children. Unfortunately, one of the parents has to take most of the children. So you're kind of stuck because daddy can't go over to the mommy's beach and mommy can't go over to the daddy's beach.
Yeah.
We've suddenly got a problem where families can't enjoy beach time.
Yeah.
So some of the hotels have incorporated a family beach. So you've got a male beach, a female beach, and a family beach. So there is an understanding on the family beach that keep it modest, keep it legit. Have fun with your family, and then obviously with the male side and the female side, they have the option to do that if they feel comfortable, doing that on their own. So there are challenges there as well. It's not just segregation. There are challenges in terms of the whole experience that Muslims want from their stay.
You're absolutely right, Nabeel. I can even, in Dubai, for example, you look at a water-themed park like Wadwadi, for example. Does anyone know that they have a specific day only for women, for example?
They have a ladies' night,
yeah,
don't
they have
yeah,
a ladies'
yeah.
night. And it's 100% full. but it's actually mostly catered towards the local market. So I can relate to that even from Turkey, even Dubai. I think they do take care of the local market in that way as well.
I guess you have to decide on your model whether you're going for the local market, the international market, and finding, you know, a happy. It's very difficult, like you say, to find the right model.
And for developers wanting to look at halal tourism, especially in Muslim countries, you have a huge base right under your noses. You know, Turkey's done that really, really well in the fact that a lot of their clients are from other parts of Turkey. You don't have to take an hour's flight to get to the beach. Istanbul hasn't really got great beaches, so Antalya is a perfect fit for it. You know, Morocco could take the same idea. You know, a lot of Moroccans travel within Morocco now as local tourism. So there's a potential there to kick off a 60-70% occupancy rate just from your local market.
The problem in Turkey is that those resorts are actually locally managed. They're not part of the group, so the standards that they
It's not
offer
international, yeah.
varies, let's say, between one and another.
Not consistent.
Not consistent. And it's important to be able to say, I'm an international brand with the highest standards and I can offer a luxury resort destination. And this is what we're doing in Salalah, in Oman, where we're opening next year. So this is going to be a nice test to see how such a resort will actually operate and what type of market reaction will receive in the GCC.
And Faeez, what are you seeing in your Salam standard properties?
It's a very interesting observation, but the thing is, you can look Malaysia, in certain hotels in Malaysia as a sample because we're 60% Muslim, but you have another 40% which are not. So it's like a balance. Even though it's known as a Muslim majority country, but you have a huge proportion of non-Muslim. So when you put that into context, you'll have requirements such as you want to have alcohol. So you can balance that. If you go to a certain hotel in Malaysia, you want to reach a restaurant which is halal certified. So part of the requirement, we have a very strict requirement for halal. So you cannot have alcohol at all served or stored. So if you go to a hotel in Malaysia, you'll see that when you order alcohol, the guy's going to go out and he's going to come back with the specific beverages that you've ordered.
Okay.
So it complies with both requirements. On the one hand, it's halal, but on the other hand, it serves the alcohol for the non-Muslims. So it serves both demand. Or if you see certain, and we're talking about hotels which are part of an international chain, like Holiday Inn, Interconti.
Yes.
So these are internationally renowned brand, but they cater for both requirements in this case, which is very fascinating. So you also have hotels which has, you have the second problem with it, which is the women-only pool.
Yes.
So certain hotels, what they do is that they have a specific time. So let's say 3 to 4
Makes
is
sense.
women only. The rest of the time is you can have male, female, anything.
It's a lot cheaper
Specific.
than having a dedicated
Yeah,
pool.
exactly. I mean, you're gonna come with a problem where
3 to 4 is too short.
maybe more
I might want to swim between 3 and 4.
I can't remember the exact slot, but the fascinating thing is that it fits both requirements because
Yes.
with the women only, you have a problem with I want to swim with mommy, but then it's a little boy, but then you can't be in the women's pool. So it's a huge problem that you'll come up with
Yes.
when it comes to family, for example.
Right.
So
And
you come
difficult
up-
for a hotel to police that as
It
well.
is, it is. I mean, you'll have people where they want to have swimming in bikini on the beach. So you have to cater for both kind of market. And Malaysia is a great example of that because it
Yes.
caters for both sets of people in that regard.
So with your Salam standard, this tries to kind of, put it into different levels, doesn't it? So
It's
how has that
basically-
worked and how's the market reacted?
It's basically, what we're trying to do is not more of a, making the place, it's basically that for Muslim, when they want to go traveling outside, that they know where they can choose, which hotel they can choose that fits the requirement which they
Yes.
want. So they might want to
It's
have
like a
just halal.
checklist,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. So they might want to have just halal. They don't mind on whether or not the hotel has alcohol in the minibar. So they can just choose hotel based on that requirement. So there's a lot of definitions. Some people mind, like I know one person in Malaysia, she doesn't go to a hotel which has alcohol at all, which is fascinating because she doesn't drink, but she minds if
someone else
people
does.
Yeah, exactly. If someone else does before her in that
Right,
specific
okay,
group.
yeah.
So for her, it's important that there's no alcohol in a minibar at all. So she has to choose a hotel which fits this requirement. So that's what we do. So basically we have specific requirement or details of features and amenities. So we let the client decide that based on their definition what halal is. So whether or not they mind, let's say alcohol, or whether or not certain features. So we fit all that requirements. So in that case, which makes it fascinating, is that it caters for all markets.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Well, I think at this opportunity would be good to take some questions from the floor. Do we have any questions? I'm sure there must be some questions for our panellists. If you'd like to ask a question, pop your hand up and we'll grab the roaming mic. Anyone? Yes. If you could introduce yourself, that would be fabulous.
My name is Irfan Ahmed. I'm the CEO of irhal.com, which is a Islamic travel website and mobile app. It's a comment more than a question that what Badr said about the fact that Muslims, when they travel, they're not seeking a Muslim destination per se. They want an experience, a travel experience, but that experience should incorporate halal. We have about 1.5 million people who visited our website, and unfortunately, Kuala Lumpur was not among the top 25 cities that they want to visit. Kuala Lumpur fits that definition of being a Muslim-friendly destination because it's a Muslim country, more or less. But people don't want to go there. They would rather go to Europe, where they experience a different cultural experience. So it's absolutely true that the halal travel is not a separate segment. It's all the segments of travel, from adventure travel to family-friendly travel, but the traveler wants that halal experience. So that, I think that's generally the consensus of the group here as well, so which is exactly how we have found from the people who come to our website and use our app, that that's exactly what they're looking for.
So I guess the opportunity is therefore for, destinations everywhere, all over the world to, get in there and be able to offer concepts that will appeal to that market, like you say, because every destination is of interest. Depends who you are, what your interests are.
Let me add here that the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Berlin is now providing halal food to their guests.
Yes.
The Grand Hotel in Vienna has hired a Lebanese chef and is now providing halal food.
Right.
So that's what we really need.
Yeah.
We need those international chains to be providing and catering to the requirements of the Muslim traveler.
And we need websites and travel agents, tour operators to get that message out there. Sorry, Scott, did you want to mention something? We'll come to the gentleman at the back afterwards.
I was just going to point out, we've talked about halal destinations, and that's partly because of the way that Muslim-friendly offerings have developed historically and geographically. When you talk about halal tourism, you really need to look at top tourism markets, not top Muslim
the source markets.
Countries.
Yeah.
You're not source markets, destinations. Spain, U.S., France, China, global markets. Anything that's out there could have a halal offering. And like we're saying, halal is not a separate, completely vanilla segment.
Yes.
It is part of every segment. It has different types of travelers, and they will logically fall into a similar pattern.
Just to put it in life example, if I had a corporate travel, I had to go to Las Vegas. And Las Vegas is, in a way, anti-halal. You don't go to Las Vegas and imagine it's fully Muslim country, but if I'm going there and I need to stay at a hotel where it offers me the closest Muslim-friendly stay as possible, and I want a high-end hotel, something like the Ritz, Four Seasons, Mandarin Oriental. You know that, for example, Mandarin Oriental is the only main large hotel in Las Vegas that doesn't have a casino on the ground floor. It offers the Qibla. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a Muslim destination, as you rightly said. It's a destination that I want to travel for multiple reasons, but I want the halal shade.
Thank you.
We're actually,
Oh, sorry, Chris.
we're actually currently negotiating a deal for several hotels across Europe in some of the destinations that you mentioned. So hopefully we'll be taking that experience and that offer into Europe very soon.
Thank you. Now, talking of destinations, I'm aware that we now have Dubai Tourism have now joined us, so we might have some questions afterwards, but I'd like to invite to the stage Isam Kazim, please, if you'd like to come up to the stage to receive an award from Faeez. Would you like to introduce the award and tell us a little bit about what it's about?
Yeah, so basically, with Dubai is basically the #1 destination for Muslim travelers. I mean, we all know that, but the amazing thing is the promotional effort put by Dubai to promote Muslim travel, and we've recognized that. So we've basically gathered 15 lists of international jury to select the best destination, which not only promotes halal travel, but also understand the concept itself and promotes the facility to make it more Muslim friendly. So based on that, the 15th jury basically selected Dubai as the
Could you
best
tell us who was
destination.
on the jury so we know your esteemed people?
There's a couple of people, representative from World Islamic Economic Forum,
Fantastic.
basically top esteemed Muslim jury in this case. So basically we selected Dubai based on certain criteria and selection that it's basically not only is Muslim friendly but also promotes the concept itself to the world outside. So
Okay, well, without further ado, I'd like to invite to the stage Isam Kazim, CEO of Dubai Corporation for Tourism and Commerce Marketing, which is the DCTCM, to receive the award. You can have a round of applause. Thank you very much, Isam. Can we have another round of applause, please, for Dubai Tourism? Okay, I think we've probably got time for one more question. There's a gentleman at the back there I know was keen to ask something. So if you could introduce yourself and your question, please.
Yeah, sure. My name is Nabeel. I'm the executive editor of Islamic Travel Newswire. I'm based in a non-halal country called Thailand, but my publication is supported by the Malaysians in the spirit of ASEAN solidarity. My question is related to this search for experience. You mentioned that a lot of Muslims are now traveling to non-Muslim countries, but I would think that the halal experience would also be very useful to non-Muslims, specifically that area which refers to the prohibition of alcohol. If one just looks at the database of Alcoholics Anonymous, there are about 10 million people in the world with serious alcohol problems who would love to stay in a place where there is no alcohol in the minibar and the other temptations of that. I mean, this is a ready and waiting database, just waiting to be tapped for people who actually want to just run from alcohol, but actually want to just have a damn good holiday at the same time. This is a captive market. I suggested this to the Bruneians some time back, but they laughed at me. And I was just wondering whether the time has come to actually seriously looking at non-Muslims with serious alcohol problems coming and staying in a place where you can be damn sure you won't get it.
Well, thank you for that question. I think, to widen that out a bit, perhaps we could talk about how the halal kind of concept of resort isn't just for Muslim travellers, but for families, really, who want that kind of environment. Chris, can you maybe?
We believe definitely that you have several other markets that are non-halal that would welcome to be in a hotel like ours. You have the family market, as I said before. You also have the sports market, because I mean, when a football team or a delegation goes for a sports event, they're not going to drink. And you have the health aspect as well. Also, you have an important market that we're going to cater for, and the way we're designing our hotels, which is the ladies' market, where regardless whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, you would like to have a facility that is dedicated to you, or you feel at ease, you're not bothered, you have everything that is tailored to your needs. So we are indeed looking at the various other markets that would fall as part of the halal offer.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to?
Just add to that. I mean, it's very fascinating that halal itself is not. I mean, it's not just made for Muslim actually.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it's basically like a brand by itself, saying that the place. I mean, if you look at a halal restaurant, it means that the place is clean. The place is the whole process is very well clean and everything. So if you go to Korea, for example, if you see a typical halal logo sign, the Korean understand it as it's organic. So whenever you go to a Korean, like say a beauty shop, and you see the halal logo, they associate it with that the product in there are organic, are clean and organic. So it's not just. I would agree that in that sense, it's not just made for Muslim, but it's basically a brand by itself, indicating certain criteria which fulfill that.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, Nabeel.
I think the other way that halal tourism has been coined is ethical tourism, and that's another term that's been strongly used over the last few months, really. And as Faeez said, especially in the UK, you go into a restaurant and they'll be serving halal food, but you'll have non-Muslims dining there. Apart from some right-wingers, you might generally people will be dining there. It's the same thing with finance. People can have the choice to invest in a bank account that is not going to return interest, but is going to invest their money in a different way. So travel doesn't have to have the same connotation. And what the gentleman mentioned, I personally reckon that probably falls under wellness and the wellness market. However, just to reaffirm the point, we're launching this year a wellness retreat for sisters who want to go away, and it's completely open to Muslims and non-Muslims, but it's a group of sisters that can go away, be comfortable in the surroundings, do a bit of yoga, eat nutritionally, have some objectives of what they want to achieve over that week. They're going to have a PT with them, and they're really going to have a time where they can just do what they want. Yeah, exactly. Do what they wanted to do, but they haven't quite found the right product for it. So, yes, potentially it could be, but I personally reckon that would probably fall more into wellness / ethical tourism.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's probably all we've got time for today. So, thank you ever so much for joining us. I'd like you to give our panellists who've been fantastic a big round of applause. Thank you for your time. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer your questions afterwards. Thank you.